Good afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In the series on sociological research method, in today's lecture we are going to discuss on basic elements of scientific methods, and today we are going to understand concepts as significant in the understanding social research and how concepts kind of help us clarify the social reality that we are studying. So, one common source of conceptual confusion in science is that when one term refers to different phenomena and when different terms refer to the same phenomena. So, culture in sociology would have a completely different meaning than what it would be in say biology, where it could be in terms of culture of organization or organism, that is the growth. And here we kind of talks about norms, values and shared system. So, very important to kind of have precision and clarity in the concepts that we are using in our research. Now, whether the same terms refers to say different terms refer to the same phenomena or the same phenomena are being explained by different terms, both situations arise from evolving experience based and context dependent nature of scientific language. To illustrate the first problem, Goodey and Hart refers to Robert K. Merton's discussion in terms of function. Even within sociology, this term carries multiple meaning. In socio-economic analysis, it may refer to a person's occupational role or position. In a mathematical sense, functions expresses a quantitative relationship as in divorce rate is a function of economic position. In social anthropology, influenced by biology, the term function denotes the role or practice or belief plays in maintaining the stability or continuity of a society. Now, the coexistence of this distinct meaning explain why even trained scientists may feel uncertain about how a concept is being used in a context. So, we know that the research is specific to a context, and the terms which have multiple meanings or a phenomena can be explained by two different terms. It is very important to have precision and clarity in terms of what the concept means in this particular context. So, different terms, let us understand both the problem. The first is different terms, same phenomena. Now, multiple terms can be used to refer to the same phenomena. This often happens because linguistic uses develops in response to different scientific experience and choice. Researchers are free to select concept for various reasons, say literacy, historical or genuine belief that they are describing something new. So, every research is kind of with this assumption that they are going to kind of add to the existing knowledge, they are going to be giving something new, and therefore, even if the reader can see they are just using different words for same thing. So, it could be because the reality has been studied multiple times by different scientists. It is kind of possible that the researcher thinks it is new, but others would know that it is just a different term for the same phenomena. Sometimes the distinctions are historical or stylistic rather than conceptual. For example, sociological pairs such structure function, ideal real, formal informal, primary secondary, and these dichotomies kind of have often are not very distinct. It is very difficult to kind of draw a line between the formal and the informal or the structure and the function, because there is a lot of overlap. Now, this overlaps substantially in meaning, often pointing to similar social distinction but framed through different theoretical lens. These issues are not simply about language. They reveal deeper confusion in thinking. Linguistic precision requires conceptual clarity in the scientist's own mind. So, another problem is there is no immediate empirical referent. So, the complication in scientific communication is that some terms have no immediate empirical referent, meaning they do not directly point to a observable phenomena. This can occur in two ways, one legitimate and useful, the other potentially confusing. Scientific theory frequently involves abstract concepts that refer not to tangible objects or measurable entities, but logical relationship among other concepts. These abstractions help scientists describe, explain, and predict phenomena that cannot be directly observed. So, there's a lot of ideological understanding, this abstraction. You cannot directly see it, you cannot directly, but you need to understand it as an important phenomena. So, example, when a sociologist speaks of social structure, now the structure that they are talking about is not a structure made of brick or cement, but it is basically a kind of a network of relations, say if we were referring to in terms of these kinship, it's kind of a network of relationship. So, here when the term social structure is used, sociologists are not referring to a concrete object that can be seen or touched. Rather, the term social structure denotes a pattern, an organized set of individual relationship among individuals and institutions that shapes social behavior. Such concepts gain meaning through their place within a theoretical system and through the connection to more observable social facts. How will we understand the structure or the network that is kind of understood in terms of roles, norms, or institutions? So, to understand a concept which is not directly observable or has no direct referent, other terms are used. So, social structure can be understood with reference to terms like roles, norms, institutions. The second unacceptable way terms can lack an immediate empirical referent when the use of the term is unaware that it has no definable referent, or when the referent is unsubstantiated assumption. So, either the researcher is unaware of the term, or when there is kind of some assumptions which has been gone in the construction of the term. This type of uses is not acceptable in science because it hinders conceptual clarity and prevents the concept from being tested or observed. The problem arises when concepts are used that are too vague, metaphorical, or based on purely fictional entities, making it difficult or impossible to determine the ultimate empirical referent. So, there is no term concepts for empirical referent. Further, the uses of the term is kind of vague or based on certain fictional ideas. So, the clarity becomes less and there is a lot of vagueness in that. Psychoanalytical writings about the death wish or racial memory are offered as further example of concepts that may be rhetorically powerful but empirically indefensible. The Goody and Hat warns against what it calls the seductive image evoking power of eloquence, that is, the human tendency to become fascinated by one's own language and mistake metaphorical expression for analytical explanation. Now, this danger can be more in terms of when we are kind of trying to understand, say, the mind, or we are trying to understand some wish, as very subjective, and the researcher gets so obsessed with their own scientific language that they kind of are unaware of the fact that there is no immediate empirical reference to the concepts that they are using. Now, this danger kind of extends beyond the social science. Even early physicists once used the concept of ether to describe an invisible substance through which light waves were thought to travel, much like ripples through water. So, it was more metaphorical, and that is how they kind of becomes a little vague. However, later investigation revealed that no substance existed. Ether had existed only as a word, not as an empirical reality. Though the term has been revived in modern physics for certain mathematical uses, it now functions purely as an abstract construct without the misleading physical connotation it once carried. So, that implies that through research there are certain kind of vague, unclear concepts gets clear and it is revised, it is reconceptualized. So, the changing meaning of concepts is also important. Terms used in any science are continuously modified as knowledge accumulates, which can confuse students and make older texts difficult to understand. Sources of conceptual changes are: number one, accumulation of knowledge and specificity. As more is known about the empirical referent of a concept, the concepts can be more specifically defined. This increased specificity, however, results in somewhat different definition and a shift in meaning. Example: the range of terms used to describe research experience expands. Instead of using status, now researchers use status rank, role, position, and so on. As a science grows, it focuses change, leading to attention being centered on different aspects of the same concept. This change is the concept's meaning while the same term is kept. The concept grows with increasing experience, leading to the realization that the original concept covers too much, necessitating a refinement or splitting of the meaning. So, you can have more concepts which would then explain the older concepts. Historical example is the term intelligence. This illustrates how the term has evolved and revised. It was conceived as an inherited, fairly stable intellectual potential. Due to conflicting data being discovered, it has to be redefined. One way of describing intelligence becomes merely the score made on a certain types of tests. So, in psychology, there are a lot of psychometric tests which will tell you your intelligence level. Now, this intelligence, so meaning is kind of very specific to the score in the test. So, there is an operational definition of what intelligence means on a scale of 10 you get 9, so it is a kind of a very limited reference to the term. These changes lead to an overlapping meaning that cause confusion. A sociologist of today finds writing from even 50 years ago very confusing because the same terms have different meaning across two periods. So, it kind of becomes then problematic because the socioeconomic conditions have changed. The term also kind of may have multiple meanings and therefore leads to confusion. And that is the time when reconceptualization becomes important. While conceptual problems in science are inevitable, they do not indicate disorder or chaos. Instead, they are normal part of scientific progress. As new discoveries are made and theories evolve, earlier conceptual difficulties tend to be resolved, though new ones naturally arise with the development of more sophisticated knowledge. Communication challenges within a scientific field are gradually overcome through collective discourse, research, and refinement within the community of scholars. So, we need to kind of understand that why is there a conceptual confusion, and as kind of part of the research, it is important to reduce the conceptual confusion. So, how do we kind of overcome the conceptual confusion and arrive at more clear and precise concepts? Now, since scientists in the field share similar problem, techniques and vocabulary, the context of exposition usually points to intended meaning of an occasionally obscure concept. Periodic conceptual analysis are conducted to highlight confused or overlapping uses and suggest solutions, preventing communication difficulties from proceeding far without correction. As science progresses, many older conceptual problems are bypassed because the concepts themselves become irrelevant to the new theoretical task. True conceptual clarity in sociology arises not from word manipulation, but from disciplined thinking about social phenomena and their interrelationship. Goody and Hatt introduces the idea of reconceptualization or respecification of a concept, a process described by Robert Merton and Paul Lazarsfeld. Reconceptualization involves re-examining and refining concepts to improve the applicability to research. This process involves a deliberate effort to clearly define the research project and its concept, a task that is also crucial to formulating hypotheses, the logic of proof, question formulation, and data analysis. Now, there are 4 steps for conceptual specification or reconceptualization. The first is identify major concepts. The student begins by writing a preliminary statement of the project. From this statement, they must carefully select a list of all major concepts involved. So, for instance, you're trying to understand change in marriage pattern, you need to kind of abstract the concepts like marital adjustment, social class, adolescence, segregation. The second step of conceptual respecification is analyze apparent meaning element. The student analyzes the concept to uncover its underlying, often unstated meaning elements. So, this helps to identify how the concepts is being used. So, one is the use in the theory. Now, what is important to see its application in terms of understanding the empirical reality. For example, for marital adjustment, the element must include personal happiness, conformity to societal rules, acceptance of fate, liking the marital state, etc. So, a number of kind of specification is required to understand a concept being used. The student must then decide which elements to accept as part of their concept, recognizing and specifying any contradiction found between the elements. The third step in conceptual respecification is review and analyze published literature uses. The student must return to the published literature to discover the various ways the term has been applied, and this is kind of known as literature review in social research. Now, the review needs to identify both the things. One, whether the concepts has been used and whether there is a need to kind of bring about change in the concepts that is being used. For example, the definition of juvenile delinquency may be used on commitment to a reform school, conviction alone, court calendar records, or police blotter entries. Each difference in uses changes the research project considerably because the phenomena being studied is different. So, the focus or the selection of the concept will change the objective of the result. The fourth step of conceptual respecification is relate to similar phenomena described by other term. This step requires the student to relate the phenomenon to similar phenomena described by other terms, often in other field. This is distinct from the previous step, which focused on different uses of the same term. And what is the outcome of following the four steps of conceptual respecification? This operation reveals the complex and often contradictory facet of the concept, ultimately resulting in a concept of much greater fruitfulness and definiteness. So, you will have a more precise definition of the concepts. There will be a clarity in the concepts, uses of the concept, and therefore, the research will have a more clear understanding. Now, when we look into the conceptualization and respecification, we need to understand the difference between theory-oriented perspective and fact-oriented perspective. Now, this long-standing debate in sociology between the two over the role and value of the operational definition, a way of defining concepts through the specific procedure used to observe or measure them. The core issue centers on whether concept meaning lies in operation used to measure it or in the underlying phenomena those operation represents. The two positions are fact-oriented or empiricist and theory-oriented view. The fact-oriented or empiricist view implies concepts are best defined through explicit operation. For instance, mass is defined by the act of weighing, and that is performing that operation yields the meaning of the term. Similarly, social cohesion could be defined by a measurable indicator gathered through specific procedure. Theory-oriented view implies concepts signify deeper phenomena beyond the measuring operation. The operation serves only as tool for identifying or estimating those phenomena. For example, social cohesion refers to an underlying social conditions, not just to survey questions or behavior used to measure it. A concept, whether defined through words or procedure, is essentially a set of direction that guides through both researcher and reader to a particular said experience or realm of observation, and that is why concepts becomes clear. Both for the researcher and the reader, it should have the same meaning, and that can be achieved only when there is precise definition and concept clarity. The definition purpose is to ensure clear communication among scientists who must agree on what experiences, measurement or interpretation are being referenced. Physical sciences rely heavily on operational definition because many of their concepts refer to things unseen directly, like atomic mass or electromagnetic field. Standardized operation allows scientists across culture and language to agree to what a term denotes. As sociology advances, it too is moving towards greater use of such precise operational definition through though with caution. So, operational definitions are kind of having a limited uses because it's only relevant to the context in which those terms or concepts have been used. So, a potential source of confusion occurs when new operational definitions are created. They may not coincide exactly with the older meaning of the same term. For instance, a sociologist defining status through measurable possessions, education and organization membership produces a new empirical construct that differs subtly from the traditional sociological notion of status. So, as the society changes and they know, what people perceive in terms of status change, the meaning of the term will also change. Now, using the same word for both would lead to misinterpretation. So, if we use the term status, say for the in the sexes, say in the traditional society in India, and the same in terms of the modern society, it will lead to a confusion, and therefore, the clarity of the concept has to be done in terms of its uses. So, the temporal, spatial uses of the concepts has to be clearly mentioned, and in order to kind of avoid any kind of confusion. So, when we come to the conclusion, we see that operational definition increase precision and replicability by linking concepts to explicit research procedure. Yet, they risk narrowing meaning and disconnecting from the broader theoretical context. Researcher must use them knowingly and selectively, balancing the need for accuracy with the need for conceptual richness. The most mature scientific work, the authors suggest, achieve both clarity and significance through conceptual refinement. So, therefore, the key take from the article by Goody and Hatt is that concepts are most important, not only in terms of focusing your research, refining your data analysis, but also in terms of the readership and the way in which the research is going to be perceived. For reference, the reading that has been used for the lecture is Goody, W.E. and P.K. Hatt, published 1952, Method in Social Research, and here the reference to the concepts as basic element in science is used in chapter 5. So, if we read the chapter, we will have a good understanding of concepts as basic elements. With this, I come to an end of this lecture. Thank you.